It's the Sports Peninsula podcast coming up. We're previewing one of the most anticipated fights that the sport of boxing has seen in the last 20 years. Errol Spence Jr. takes on Terence "Bud" Crawford for the Undisputed Welterweight Championship of the world. This fight has been on and off again over the last couple of years, but on Saturday, July 29th, these two great champions will meet in Las Vegas to settle all doubts. We'll preview this fight as well as the Fulton versus Inoue clash on July 25th, Tuesday. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team.
Now for the moment of truth, Bud. The moment we've been all waiting for. The fight of the summer. This is the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Andy Shield. I am here with my dear good friend Dave Druzinski, Drew, Justin Marroquin, and Mike Chops Mills. We are here to talk about Terence "Bud" Crawford and Errol "the Truth" Spence. An undefeated fight between the two fighters. And guys, we finally have the fight upon us that we've been waiting for all summer. Gentlemen, how are we doing, Drew? How are things?
Real good, Coach. This is, I'd argue this is without question one of the biggest fights of this century. You know, about the quarter way in. One of the best fights I've seen in a long time. Looking forward to talking about this one.
Absolutely. Justin, how are things going in your neck of the woods?
Pretty good. And I'll echo what Dave was just saying, that this is the fight. I mean, usually in the summertime, we're waiting for, Canelo and, what bell is he going to get next and whatnot. But, not so much the case this summer in 2023. It's Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Someone's O's got to go.
Yeah, man.
Mike Mills. Our man from down in Georgia. How are things going for Big Chops?
Man, they're going well, man. Going well. I mean, it's hot. It is the devil's den out there, but I'm good, man. I'm trying to maintain.
We up here in the state of Michigan, we're just above the heat domes. So we're getting we're getting a lot of rain, which is the residual effect. But I know it has been sweltering lately. We're feeling for you. I mean, up here, when it gets to be 80 degrees for more than 12 hours, people are generally complaining about heat.
I got you.
That's the way it is in the state of Michigan. But my goodness, 90. We're going to get some 90s here soon. But we're with you down here, Chops.
Man.
Like we said, we're talking about July the 29th, year. Terence "Bud" Crawford versus Errol "the Truth" Spence. T-Mobile Arena out over in Las Vegas. Big fight. A lot of belts on the line here. Want to believe that Crawford is the WBO holder.
That's correct.
And we've got Mr. Spence holding the WBC, IBF, and WBA Welterweight Championship belts. Wow, this is going to be one. But let's pique our interest in a couple of other things going on. We've got one here that's happening. Actually, it's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow in the early afternoon, I want to say, right, Drew?
No, early morning.
I wish. Yeah. 8 in the morning.
Yeah, 8 in the morning.
Tomorrow morning. And this is going to be on Plus, I see.
Yes.
We've got the Fulton Inoue Junior Featherweight Championship fight. If it happens. Sounds like there's some sinister happenings going on here. Chops, let's go with you. What's going on with the Inoue Fulton fight?
All right. Well, look, first, I was very much looking forward to this fight. I'm an Inoue fan. I like him. He's moving up from 117 to 125. Forget about number 1, number 2 contenders. He's going for the belt quick, fast, in a hurry. And I really was looking forward to talking about this fight. But after what Fulton's doing and talking about the way he wraps his hands and they may pull out of the fight, which has come up, the last 72 hours, fellas, I'm not even going to dignify. I don't want to even talk about it now because, and here's why. Fulton's camp, you had time to read the contract before you signed it. I understand the boxer and the trainer shouldn't have read it, but his legal team should have. Inoue has fought in Japan most of his fights. You knew what you were getting into. You knew what you were getting into. Now it's an issue. Now it's a problem. I have no words for it, man. I'm done because it makes him look cowardly. to me.
I hear that, Chops. I do. I hear it loud and clear. Drew, what's with the gloves? What happened with the gloves? Was there something about an open issue with a glove or something like that?
Yeah, and Justin, maybe you can touch on that a little bit because you sent us that link. That they showed a picture of the gloves delivered and the bag had been opened and taped back up. So there's excuse number 2. What did you see, Justin?
Yeah, it looked like by Fulton's camp or his team, it looked like it was a picture taken on an Instagram story that was put on Twitter, and it showed some gloves. That's pretty standard and customary that each fighter has at least probably 6 to 8 pairs of gloves and bags, laid out or whatever. But with Inoue's, it looked like one of the boxing gloves in the packaging looked like it was taped, kind of like how you see at the store where something was open and someone put some tape over it. So that's what Fulton's camp is, trying to say about that. Sunday, there was some stuff said too from Fulton's camp about wraps, and they're kind of worried what Inoue is going to do and whatnot with that. So I like what Chop said. My interest level was up here, and now it's declined. I'm still going to watch the fight.
Oh yeah,
but now it just seems like, I don't want to say an easy out, but it already seems like the excuse cards are thrown out there if Fulton comes up, healthy. So
and real quick, Drew, before you put your 2 cents in like Justin and I did, I thought a boxing official watches you get your hands wrapped and then signs it. That's why we always see boxers when they take their gloves off. There's a mark. So he signs it. And I know they do it in Vegas, and I guess you can do it anywhere. A member of the opposite camp now gets to watch you get your hands wrapped after some of the things that have happened years ago. Fellas, you're missing me. I don't get what's going on. I'm not understanding where your boy Fulton's camp is coming from. And that's all I wanted to put in.
I don't get it. I mean, at face value, I believe I'm in alliance with you guys. We've already got 2 built-in excuses now. Well, if we lost, there was an issue with the refs, an issue with the gloves. Justin, I thought you took. I literally sent my stepson a pair of gloves yesterday, and I got a picture from Amazon on the porch. They looked like that. I was like, "What, are you messing with me or something? What's going on here?" I'm not kidding you. It's like, what the hell is this? Hey, you know what? I think it's disappointing. I don't know. And I don't know if Fulton's getting bad information and getting bad guidance here, or maybe he's leading this. Who knows? But he's responsible for it because the people working for him work for him. And that's so his name's on this. So I don't like it either. And I'm really disappointed because he's one of the guys between him, Keyshawn Davis, and Boots Ennis. I think those 3 guys are just young up and coming stars.
Fellas, think about this real quick. And I know we got to get to Spence Crawford, but think about this for half a moment. Last week, you had Kambosos. It was what it was. But like you said, Keyshawn Davis was on that card. This week, we have Crawford and Spence. If Fulton would have told Inoue, come to the States, let's fight in Vegas, next week or 2 weeks later, boxing would be a phenomenal time for boxing. I mean, seriously, because people who know boxing love Inoue. Fulton is nice. This is something, honestly, that could do well in Vegas. I'm not understanding why. And if this was an issue, Fulton, you have the belt. Inoue stepping up. You should have made him come to you. Who doesn't want to fight in Vegas, fellas? Come on.
I think the biggest problem here, Chops.
What's that?
I think the biggest problem here is Fulton's camp or his team. There's misunderstanding and there's miscommunication going on because you're in another country. You're in Japan. Like you just said, this would have been awesome if this was at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. But come on.
Man,
before the show, read the fine print, read the contract. You're going to another country, so you kind of got to get informed. So it sounds like his team wasn't well informed.
And fellas, let's keep it 100. Other countries and other locations overseas, they don't take or accept excuses like we Americans do. And I'm just being honest with you. You don't see a lot of foreign fighters making excuses regardless. You know what I mean? So I don't know how well that looks, but it is what it is, man.
I mean, to really wrap this one up, no pun intended, Inoue's double I mean, he's got his lead left hook, and he throws a double lead left hook, and he changes the trajectory of it. First he hits high and then low. He opens up that liver. He has put many guys down for the count because of those shots. I don't think he'll knock out Fulton or TKO him, but I think he's going to win pretty convincingly. He's a heavy favorite.
Fellas,
it's a heavy favorite.
I do think that's a little bit of hometown cooking, but let's not, and as well, a lot of people don't know Fulton, but let's not forget, Inoue is also suspect to get hit by that left hook. Fulton throws a nice left hook, and when Inoue retreats, he does the one cardinal rule. Sin, should I say? Excuse me. He retreats straight back. You never do that. That's what could be an issue for him. I'm telling you flat out. It'll be easy for me to avoid TVs and whatever before I get home. Now, Bleacher Report might be a little issue. However, if I see it goes the distance, I think they're going to give it to Inoue regardless. I think the only way Fulton wins this in Japan, he's got to knock him out. Got to knock him out. Has to.
Yep. I don't see that happening, to be honest. I just don't. But I like Stephen Fulton a lot. I hope he wins. Not that I don't like Inoue either. I think they're both great fighters. But I like Fulton a lot. And to me, this is a bigger fight than maybe. I know he's 21.
Without question.
It's a big fight here. I don't know.
Question.
Never faced anyone like Inoue before.
Man, let's put it this way. Mm-hmm. What did I say? Kambosos just fought Saturday night. Kambosos on ESPN, they could have put him to tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Yes. And this fight was definitely bigger than that one.
Yes.
So let's get serious, fellas. I'll talk about this all night, man. I'm telling you. So you guys got anything
to do? Exciting times. Well, if you want to see this one, it's coming up upon us tomorrow morning on ESPN Plus, live from the Ariake Arena in Tokyo. Fulton Inoue for the Unified Junior Featherweight Championship. Heavily favored, Inoue's heavily favored. Fulton's kind of insulated himself. We've got glove issues and rap gate perhaps on the horizon. But let's move on down further into the week, and into the fine state of Nevada we come to T-Mobile Arena this Saturday evening. And this will be a Showtime pay-per-view event, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a little extra cash on this one.
Yep. There'll be 5 of paper and 4 of coin if you want to gather that one. And those denominations aren't revealed, so it's a bit of an expensive fight. But this one is slated to be the best fight we've had in some time. We had talked about who these two fighters are and what's on the line this Saturday. When it comes to basically, completely restructuring the welterweight division in one fighter's favor. Just looking at this fight, Justin, how big of a fight is this for the sport of boxing? How big of a thing is this the Crawford Spence fight for boxing in the year 2023?
This is huge, and I would argue to say, I was just talking to my friend about it the other day, that I don't know if I'm getting older, just more nostalgic watching my dad and his friends coming over for the Tyson fights and whatnot. I think boxing now is bigger than MMA, UFC. I would argue with that. And it starts with these two, fine gentlemen here. They represent the sport very well. They're both undefeated. They're both hungry, and, we're getting what we want out of boxing is 2 undefeated champs going head to head. How many times have we seen this before where, 2 undefeated champs agree, in principle, and then all of a sudden, deal falls through, or, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, I want this many pay-per-view royalties and whatnot, and then the fight just falls through. So this is huge. This could really lift, I think, the sport of boxing. It's elevated it. And I think this fight too will create some new fans as well. Some casual fans that really don't watch boxing will watch this fight Saturday night.
Well, you brought up, your dad having friends over to watch the Tyson fights, and those fights for the most part were generational matchups. And we grew up in the era, some of us did in the era of Here, Tommy Hearns, he had some just generational fights, both of them with Ray Leonard. Hagler, obviously, is an amazing fight. And what he was able to do to Roberto Duran, where the others were not able to quite do things like that. Generational stuff. Drew, is this a generational fight?
I believe it is. Now, obviously, we're Gen X or whatever, and we we're from the Four Kings generation, right? So that's a tough one. But this isn't our generation; it's the new generation. And yeah, it doesn't get much bigger than this. We've seen undefeated fighters clash. We've seen champions, the belts unified. But these two guys are elite. Spence has been more I could say more conventional in terms of how his career's been built, but Bud got the Triple G treatment. No one wanted any part of him, and he struggled being with Top Rank for a while there, and he couldn't get the matchups, and he was avoided like a plague for good reason, because he puts people's lights out. That's why I really love that these guys are fighting. I respect the heck out of Errol Spence Jr. for taking this fight too. He didn't duck anybody, although it looked kind of shaky there for a while whether this was going to happen or not. So I'm just really glad it's happening, Coach. It's going to be a good one.
Chops, real quick before we get to the tail of the tape, is this the kind of fight that both fighters benefit from in the end, even the one that doesn't win?
Okay. I am the grumpy old man of the group. Here's why. I am ticked. This fight it's 2-3 years late. I'm not going to say 5 as Pacquiao and Mayweather was, but this is years late. And now at this point, Bud is 35. Spence is 33. I mean, where do they go after this on that aspect? I mean, yeah, maybe some young up-and-comers. You know what I mean? So after this, it's welterweight. Who else is – there could be some other big fights without question, but I don't think either fighter is going to have a bigger name on their resume than right now with these guys. You know what I mean? And again, because we as fans still want to see it, but we know this should have happened 2 years ago. That's what bothers me. That's what bothers me. And Justin, I'm an MMA guy, right? It's going to be interesting because there's a great MMA card also Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see how it measures out on pay-per-view buys. Boxing will still probably win out. However, the boxers are smarter than MMA guys because boxers, you know what I mean? So honestly, I remember when Ricardo Mayorga refused to fight Shane Mosley, Sugar Shane. He said, I'm not fighting him for less than $5 million. You weren't even a big draw. And you know what I'm saying? $5 million. An MMA fighter today would still love to get $5 million for a fight. You know what I mean? So boxers are definitely
unless you're John Jones.
Yeah. So, but I'm really interested in this one. To me, it's just going to be an icing on the cake of whoever wins it because there's not many bigger names to go for, just being honest with you. You know what I mean? So, but of course, I'm still interested in seeing it, definitely.
Errol the Truth Spence David, WBC, WBA, and IBF champion, 3 bouts, welterweight bouts, 5'9.5", lefty, 72-inch reach. So he reaches at a 6-foot tall man's clip. A little longer reach than he is tall. And you've got, listed here on the slide, his last 5 victories or his signature fights. Mm-hmm. And you see, those are all victories. How did Errol the Truth Spence become the 3-time the WBA, WBC, and IBF welterweight champion?
Well, he was going to fight Manny Pacquiao, and correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, that's when he had the eye injury, the detached retina, and he had to pull out of that fight. And Ugas was a replacement, and Ugas rocked Pacquiao's world.
Yeah,
took the belts. So then Spence came back in to the mix and took on Ugas, and then that's how he was able to when he won that fight. And he was very, very impressive in winning that fight too, because Ugas beat Pacquiao down to the point where I don't think we'll see him again. It looked like he hit the wall, and literally and figuratively. But I'll tell you what, the fights that really impressed you with Spence, knocking out Brook in the 11th, and then the Porter fight. Even though it was a split decision, I felt he won the fight. It was very, very close, but he looked really good. And unfortunately, he had the accident shortly thereafter, the car crash, which, again, Chops touched on that. Crawford's 35, Spence is 33, but also has had significant injuries from that accident, and then had the eye injury as well. So that's where it's 2 years too late comes into play, because a lot happened, and with a little bit of age and all those injuries, that could be a factor. I'm hopeful that won't be. I think we're going to see a very, very strong version of Errol Spence Jr. in this fight. But yeah, that's he being undefeated, but realistically, he the Brook fight and the Ugas fight, he was real impressive. The Porter fight, he was impressive. He got the decisions over Mikey Garcia and Danny Garcia. But that's kind of the road he's taken in the last couple of years. He's been inactive since April of last year. So about 15 months.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's a concern or not either. I don't know, but he's definitely one of the best around.
Well, Errol the Truth Spence Jr., 28-0, 22 victories by knockout, hailing from DeSoto, Texas. Chops. Bud Crawford, the WBO welterweight champion, 39-0, hailing from Omaha, Nebraska. 30 wins by KO. He's 5'8", 74-inch reach, so he's got a 2-inch reach advantage on a guy that's taller than him by 1.5 inches. You see his signature fights, and, he has not lost one. You see there's some common opponents there. Sean Porter was a split decision for Errol Spence Jr. Well, that was a technical knockout for Terence Bud Crawford.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did Bud Crawford get to this spot, Chops?
Man, just doing what he's supposed to do. And I mean, and you would say that's how everybody gets there. But fellas, let's remember with your boy Crawford, lightweight, light welterweight, and out welterweight, his power has always traveled with him. He's still not, you know what I'm saying? That's the one thing, a fighter who steps from a smaller weight class up to a larger weight class, that's what you worry about. Will my power travel with me? And his has. And it's funny that you have on there the Gamboa fight, right? Do you remember him getting rocked by, was it a right hook or an overhand right? But he got rocked, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Crawford, being ambidextrous, switched up on him. I mean, he was smooth with it. Switched up on him, boom, 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 and ended up finishing it, right? Yeah. And I stop and think, and I love Mike Tyson for years, but what really got me into Mike Tyson was Cus D'Amato. Cus D'Amato had a lot. I mean, fellas, he had a lot of sayings. He had one, heroes and cowards feel the exact same fear. Heroes just react to it differently, right? He was the one that used to say throw punches in bunches, right? He's the one who started fear is like fire, but if you know how to control it, the same thing they used in Rocky, got it from Cus D'Amato. But he also said the great ones know how to change on the fly. That's what Bud Crawford, fellas, you guys watch just as much boxing as I do, and you'll see him change up mid-fight. That's why he starts slow, because I think he needs to see what his opponent's doing, go to the corner, take a minute, because that's all you get, adjust on the fly, and this is what you get. Fellas, think about this. Most guys have training camps for weeks to prepare for their opponent. That's what he does. Then when he realizes what I trained for isn't working, I'll flip on you right now, and I'm still walking out with the W. That's impressive, fellas. That's impressive to me. Yeah, that's me.
Cus D'Amato. I mean, what man, you brought up some. I watched something last week, Mike, on Screen Picks of all things. Probably basically the Yugo of movie channels. I mean, it's beyond free. I think they pay you to care to watch it. They had this one called AKA Cassius Clay. It was from 1970. It was right around the time where he was starting to battle the legal issues regarding his drafting in the Vietnam War. And Cus D'Amato did a little bit of a kind of an interview sort of feel out with Muhammad Ali. and there was like it just amazing stuff. I mean, he had Ali at attention for a minute or two a couple times, which you didn't do back in those days.
Yeah.
He didn't stop talking for anybody. And they actually started doing some shadow stuff, some sparring and those kinds of things. And this was, Customano, a much younger man. He actually got inside a couple times on Ali and showed him some things. Just an amazing boxing man.
Yeah, man.
Amazing boxing man. And the man that forged Mike Tyson. So really interesting you bring him up. He's an absolute lesson. Justin, let's go back and talk a little Spence here. Okay. Terence Bud Crawford appears to be, by all accounts, a favorite by some. There's a lot of people I've seen that are high on Terence Crawford in this fight. How does Errol the Truth Spence Jr. win this fight himself, Justin?
Well, I think what has to happen is he's got to fight him close, I believe, because Crawford is very good with his footwork. Like Chop said, can switch up his styles. Spence, I believe will be the bigger man that night, weight-wise. And he's very good at kind of pressing his weight on the other fighter. And what he does is he has his lead jab. He throws it about 2 or 3 times, followed up with a body shot. And he also goes to the head as well, but he loves those body shots. And according to Sean Porter, who's fought both men, he said that Errol Spence Jr.'s power is more devastating than Crawford's. Crawford's is more kind of like snappy, comes out of nowhere, still hurts you. But he said Errol Spence Jr. has that bigger shot. But I believe if he's going to defeat Terence Bud Crawford, he's got to get up close and personal, and he's got to impose his body frame on Crawford and wear him down. He cannot, I don't think he can win this fight at range and just, kind of chasing each other around the ring. That's not going to get it done. He's got to get up close and personal with Crawford, and he's got to deliver those shots. And just putting his body weight alone, leaning on Crawford, and I think, especially in the later rounds, if it goes that far, that'll wear down Crawford considerably.
Yeah, the jab, right? Crawford's got 2 inches on him in regards to reach, but you had mentioned the bigger, maybe more powerful fighter is Spence. That really does sound like a game plan that would definitely work. Drew, Terence Crawford, is he a favorite in this fight? And if he is a favorite, Drew, what's the tail? What are the keys to victory for him? What's going to bring the belts over to him?
Well, and he is a favorite, a slight favorite. I believe I just checked the odds prior to recording here, and I think he's like plus 120, and Crawford's a minus 150 favorite. So I mean, it's relatively close still.
115 is normally even line.
Yeah, so I mean, it's still real close. So.
Wow.
At the end of the day, what Bud does well, I mean, in Chop's touch on how he switched against Gamboa, he does that in he switches his stance every fight. Now, if you watch the Kambosos fight last Saturday, he was criticized by Bradley because he said he's too slow with it, and he telegraphs it, and he's right. You could see it coming, but Bud is more. He's going to step forward at an angle, and immediately that becomes his back foot. He's very slick, so it's not telegraphed. It's very it's sometimes it's out of necessity, but then sometimes it's out of sometimes it is out of a plan and more of a counter reaction. So I think with Crawford, he needs to definitely he is methodical, and I think he's more methodical than Spence. Spence is gonna touch you with the jab a lot. Crawford's a little more methodical. Love his range, without question. I think he's very dangerous. And the thing with Crawford, he has good power, but like Chop said, or Justin said it with Porter, saying the element of surprise creates KO opportunities. And if you trained in boxing, that's what it's about. You get that tap, boom, and it does that. This shot isn't necessarily a huge shot, but it's a lot harder and from a different angle. And if you kind of equate it to how you would pitch, these guys are both of them are excellent at changing where that punch is coming from and where it's going. Spence is going to hit you with three headshot jabs, and all of a sudden he's going to go with that cross to the body, like Justin said. Crawford does a lot of the same thing. You got to change your rate. It's like pitching to a baseball hitter. You're gonna throw high, you're gonna throw low, you're gonna come in and out. You don't want it coming off in the same direction, same type of punch. I mean, that you can't do that. You're just telegraphing, and guys, the great ones figure it out really quick. They both have great footwork. He's got to be willing to take to give. He's gonna have to be, and I'm sure he's not afraid of that. But he's not fought a guy like Spence either. He's fought some really good ones, and like you mentioned, Coach, he has like opponents with Porter and also Brook. And this reminds me of the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight in the sense because they both had like opponents, and ironically, Pacquiao would dispatch the like opponents a lot quicker than Mayweather did, and we know how that ended up.
True, but me being a Pacquiao fan, let's not forget he had the shoulder issue, and all he wanted to do was taking a pain shot, and Mayweather's fan camp was like, no. So there, but again, we waited 5 years for that one. But
I was a doubting Thomas on that one too.
Yeah.
But looking back, the way he fought, it was kind of obvious, though. It's unfortunate the way it worked out.
Fellas, here's my thing. I believe Crawford is getting the bud, but Crawford's getting the bud. Bud is getting the nod because his boxing IQ, because he can change and do it smooth. There were fighter
commentators. My mind, man. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. How is he going to utilize his ability to go from orthodox to left to orthodox? How is he going to use this?
Well, see, and here again, remember, like as Drew said, Kambosos did it last week, and Bradley was commenting. We all saw it was taking too long. And a lot of commentators and fighters used to say, when you're always switching stands, that means you're not good at either one and you're not comfortable. That's not him. He can do either one and is just as good either way. So, and that's how. What worries me is, yes, we know Spence is going to be the bigger, stronger guy. We know that. We know that. What I'm worried about is Crawford is a slow starter because he's taking a round, 2-3 rounds to figure you out. He's been hit with some good shots in those early rounds. He can't afford to do that because Spence can put him out. You know what I mean? Because Spence can put him out. But I am looking at, like you said, the same fighters. Porter was about as close to Spence as you're going to get. You know what I mean? And let's put it this way. That went to the decision. You know what I mean? That went to a decision. I'm excited about this fight. But again, what the biggest thing is how Crawford changes his stance, but he's got to avoid that hook. He's got to avoid that hook. That's me, that early on hook. He has to adjust a little bit faster.
Terence Crawford has achieved knockouts in every single 100% of his welterweight fights.
Yes. His power travels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his power has traveled with him. And as Drew's indicated, he really hydrates and really kind of lives and breathes at a higher weight class.
Yeah, his walk around weight, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Chops, we're sticking with you, man. Okay,
I'm with it. I'm ready.
We need to start talking about predictions. Who's going to win this fight and how's it going to go down? You can see what some of the people that across the sport have said. The great Teddy Atlas has Crawford, as does Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, the aforementioned, Sean Porter, we've talked about. Canelo likes Crawford. Antonio Tarver, he likes Crawford. Kell Brook, guy that's fought. I believe Errol Spence.
Both of them. Yep.
Crawford. He's fought both. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you got Freddie Roach, who also likes Crawford. You got Keith Thurman in there that's saying that this is going to be a draw. But right now we want to know what Mike Mills is thinking.
Man, I do. I like Crawford. His body, and again, and I don't want to take anything from Spence. But with that split decision with Porter, if that might have went the other way, I don't say Porter. I don't say he was gifted. So it was a good fight. It really was a good fight. You know what I mean? And he was a younger Porter, so he gave him more problems. However, I like Crawford, what he can do. If I hypothetically weren't to watch this fight and somebody tells me if it ends within 4, Crawford got caught with that left. Once it hits round 5 and more, Crawford has figured him out, and I think he's gonna start distancing himself. And I like Crawford. I do. But let's not forget, you got what is it, 2 accidents that Spence has been in that literally by the grace of God he's walking away from. One was his own fault because he was a DUI. So I hate to say borrowed time, but he's got to look at life now as a true gift. You know what I mean? Just enjoy the moment. Maybe he fights a little differently, but he's also, to me, been a little bit more cocky. And you would think after those sort of life experiences, you'd be a little bit more humble. However, I still like Crawford on this one. I just like Crawford, man. I just think his toolbox is better.
Justin, what's your prediction here? What are you thinking?
This is about as tough as you can get. I've been going back and forth like a tennis match in my head, watching tape, watching, their older fights, recent fights, whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think I have to agree with Chops. I believe Crawford is going to win this fight based upon his IQ. And just if you look at the past 7 fights that you had on the screen there, Coach, you saw TKOs, knockouts. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to go the distance. And I think Crawford's going to win by split decision. But I just think he's going to frustrate Spence Jr. And also, if you look back at the Ugas fight with Spence Jr., he threw a lot of hooks that he was susceptible, I thought, to uppercuts. And that could be devastating because you get blasted with one of those, Crawford throwing one of those. I mean, he could get knocked out. I'm not so sure, but I did see a lot of that where he did throw some wild punches like that. So he's
against an older 36-year-old Ugas, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my prediction.
Drew, how's this? How do you, we've talked, Chops and Justin, both have talked about and just kind of reiterate, the lethal skills that Terence Bud Crawford possesses and brings to the table in this fight. How do you see this thing playing out?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? I like Justin had said earlier, went back and forth like a tennis match in my head. I actually when this fight was signed, I actually in my head was thinking I was going to favor Spence, and I like I said, I like them both a lot. In detail, I see this fight much like Chop said. It's going to be with Crawford starting slow and playing a little feel out game. Wouldn't call it a game; it's just a style. And it's going to be, I see this as a dead even fight through 6 rounds. And then after that, we're going to start seeing the separation. I think Bud's going to start imposing his will a little bit. I think the cards will be a lot closer potentially than maybe this fight would be. Because I just have this feeling that Vegas would rather see Spence win. Maybe it's the age, couple years only, but I don't know. Maybe they feel he's more marketable. I don't know. A lot of people, Terence Crawford, and I've heard this from a lot of fight fans I talk to, doesn't market himself well at all. Now, we blame Top Rank for that before, but again, let's prove it in the ring. I can't wait for Saturday, but I see Crawford getting a unanimous decision. I see this coming in as a legitimate 116, 112 fight. I don't think we should see if we see a card any more lopsided than that, I'm going to kind of raise an eyebrow. I could be wrong, but I do think Bud will win this fight, but I think it's going to be an excellent fight. But again, if Spence can get going early, like you guys talked about with the hooks, I mean, if he hurts him early, and he can, look out, all bets are off at that point. This is like a tight football game. Both teams are just so stacked. It comes down to the basics: blocking, tackling, who controls the ball, who controls the line of scrimmage, who controls the clock. Right here. We all know both these guys have knockout power, great speed, great footwork. They're total package. They're 5-tool athletes here. Someone's going to make a mistake, and someone's going to pay for it. Now, I'm inclined to think it's going to be Crawford that's going to win this fight, and I'm going to stick by that. But I'm not 100% confident in that. I'll be honest with you. I think Spence has a very legitimate shot of winning this. Hence, the odds are so close. But that's how I see it too. I agree with all you guys.
Well, I'm going to be the fourth. I just think, Errol Spence, 15 months is 15 months. And in a sport like boxing, in many ways a blood sport. I mean, this is about, being hungry. This is about being in tempo. This is about, you can't get your toes wet in this pool. You need to jump in and get involved in this fight. It's been 15 months since he's done that. Chops brought it up multiple times, and I agree 100%. I think Mike's so on to these accidents that Errol Spence has had. To have two of them, one in his own hand, he caused that.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I mean, it was reported on Twitter. I can remember it was plain as day texting Drew that it didn't sound good for him. Mm-hmm. That it didn't sound like he was going to, that he would ever definitely fight again, but maybe live and be able to walk away from that one. I just think that's a lot of life lived right there, and I do understand that he may have a little bit more, more natural power than Terence Crawford. But his fight, and he leads and lives with the jab. That's great. That's great and all. But it sounds like Errol Spence is going to depend on some home runs and, hitting some home runs in this fight. He's going to need to hit some home runs in this one. Terence Crawford, that ability to go in and out of orthodox to left to orthodox, keeping people honest that way. He's a bit more of a ground and pounder, more of a methodical, grind you type fighter. I just think those things considered, I'm also in Crawford's camp. I am going to go also with a unanimous decision. Because I just don't think he's going to allow Errol Spence to try to do any damage with him. He's going to definitely be somewhat conservative.
Fellas, let me ask you this real quick before we leave. And you can answer. You don't have to answer, but if you can answer, just want to make it quick, real quick. We're talking about how close we believe the fight's going to be. We're all going back and forth since it's been signed. Is that because of the skill set in both guys or because the power that Spence has? Because are you really telling me skill set for skill set? And you maybe you think that, but are you thinking skill set for skill set, these guys are even playing? Or is it with that power, you can never count him out? Never. He's got more than a puncher's chance. I'll give you that. I'm not saying it's just a puncher's chance, but that's my thing. If we're going strictly toolboxes, I don't know, man.
We're talking 67-0 between the two fighters. Right?
I know.
52 knockouts. So now that said, this isn't like the Sugar Shane, De La Hoya, Pernell Whitaker, era. This isn't the Ray Leonard, Durand, Hearns era. This isn't even Pacquiao, Mayweather era. It's a little bit different. So what does this 67-0 really reveal? I'll tell you this, though. I think, Mike, you lead it up. I don't think Terence Crawford will let Errol Spence's power become a factor. I think that he will make sure that does not happen.
Yeah, but again, like as the motto said, the punch you get knocked out with is the one you don't see coming.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So if he catches him hypothetically when he's switching or early when he is figuring out his game plan, that's his only chance. I don't see him getting a decision over Crawford. I don't. I don't.
Well, and that's a great point though, Mike, is he hasn't thrown punches in 15. There's no tape on him. The last fight's a long time ago. Yeah, he could jump up with one. He could jump up with one and hit a home run on Terence Crawford.
Yeah, like I said, last thing to go on a fighter is his power. So we know he still got power. We know that. Yep. Got to give him his credit on that. Fellas, again, can't tell you how much I enjoyed this. Go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
I'll give you guys a little tidbit. I was watching the Showtime Sports, leading up to this fight. And in that Ugas fight, if you remember, he tagged Spence and his mouthpiece flew out. And Spence Jr. admitted that he wasn't worried about that. He thought his partials came out from the accident. He got partials in. Mm-hmm. So he is concerned about that because they showed him getting a new mold, new mouthpiece, and the guy that's doing it said, it shouldn't come out and whatnot. So he admittedly said that. So in the back of his mind, he's a little concerned about that his teeth might, be on the mat instead of his mouthpiece.
Legitimate.
Folks, you just heard there's 4 guys thinking that Terence Bud Crawford's going to win this thing in T-Mobile Arena this Saturday, July the 29th. in Las Vegas, Showtime pay-per-view event. What do you think? We'd love to hear what you have to think in the comments below. We'd love, to have you hit the like button and subscribe to the Sports Peninsula podcast on YouTube. You can also hear the Sports Peninsula podcast where you get your podcasts and where podcasts can be heard or seen. If there's anybody else got anything they want to throw into this one, or are we ready to go?
Ready, Freddie. Let's hit it. Let's do it.
Ready. Can't
Teriyaki Arena tomorrow morning.
Yeah, man.
T-Mobile on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
And the Sports Peninsula podcast 24/7.
Phil, this is a great weekend for combat sports. Great weekend.
Oh yeah, and we got some MMA too. I know my son.
It's a great weekend. Kicking off tomorrow. And the great part about this is talked about Kambosos. Did he get gifted? It's over, Canada. And we'll have the fight tomorrow. Talk about that for 3-4 days. Then we got a good one to fight you. Man, I'm ready. All right, fellas. Again, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I truly enjoyed this with you guys.
Well, we enjoy you, Mike. For Mike Mills, Justin Marquin, Dave Druzinski, I'm Andy Shield, and this is the Sports Peninsula podcast.
This has been the Sports Peninsula podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and listening. Remember, when you want to hear about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula podcast.